Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. Before we get to today's episode, I'd like to draw your attention to patreon.com/consensusunreality. For just $5 a month, you get access to our full episode archive, 5 years worth. You get regular exclusive episodes hosted only on Patreon, written content, Discord server, and if you join our print club tier, you get our quarterly Journal of Shells, which is a curated printed journal zine by the two people behind Consensus Unreality, which includes archival and new occulted and esoteric texts and art. We're very excited about that, so check that out there. Thanks for listening to the show and enjoy this episode. Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. Flying solo on this one. Ben's got some stuff going on this week. But joining me for a brief interview is Erick Van Ficken.
Hey.
Residing currently in Richmond, Virginia. Performs music under the Coteries project. But I guess you have a long history of dabbling in the black and white arts, brushing up against the occult and the esoteric,
For sure.
and certainly some ghostly encounters as well.
Yeah.
So where should we start, man? How did you kind of get into like weird stuff?
Oh God. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just like kind of you don't have a choice, or you do, and it kind of like confronts you in that like unconscious, subconscious way throughout your life. But yeah, ghostly encounters. That's funny. Because I said to Yvonne, I was like, I don't know.
Recording in progress.
Sorry. Yeah, I would just record
no,
that
you're
as a
good.
backup. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about, and I was like, maybe I should just talk about the Catherine house that we lived in, because today
Whereabouts
I
was
just
that?
it was in Richmond,
Okay.
and we lived there for I lived there for like 8 years, and she was like there, I think 5 of those years, and it was just like um really, really, really charged experience living in that house. And the reason I thought about that today was because she had everyone who lived in that house was just consistently having very intense experiences. And one of hers was um, the closet door opening in the middle of the night. Like I was asleep and she saw the closet door open, and then uh in the center of the room heard like a small bell ringing. Um and I found this today. Like I was going through some trash can, and someone had thrown out all their altar stuff.
Wow.
It was like and I priced out most of it, but like I kept a few pieces for myself, including this bell, which it was like this tiny bell that it has gold foil, like the clapper, and they made out of gold foil.
Oh, wow.
So it's really,
Yeah.
really like, but anyways,
So how old
yeah,
was this house? Like it,
I did research on it. Like, so it was in Jackson Ward, which was after the end of the Civil War. It quickly became like a black economic center of the U.S. and um, it the house was a men's boarding house, so it would have had like who knows, like probably like 40 guys like bunked up in there.
That's a
Is
lot
it,
of like psychic
that'd be
energy imparted
my
on a
guess.
place. Yeah.
Right. And but yeah, so it was like I went to the VCU archive and it said it was like older than it was listed. You know, like the house itself I think was 1910 is what they were saying, but if you went to the archive it said it was like 1870.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I don't really know, but yeah, it was the very first day that we went in there, me and my old roommate. We were just like no furniture, nothing in there. We were just like sitting in what was to be my room, chatting, and like I saw like just a shadow flicker up the wall and down towards my roommate, and his head slumped down, and we were just like looking at him like, you okay? You know? And his then he went back and gasped and like crawled out of the room on hands and knees and started bawling outside of the room.
This sounds like a movie, like that's an
And
insane thing to actually see,
yeah, and he just said he felt like he felt like something went inside of him, and he just it triggered all of his negative traumatic memories. That's what he said. Like he
Wow.
just got flooded. That was the first 20 minutes in the house.
So like
So
a
that
negative, some sort of negative psychic force is pervading over this place.
every everybody considered it negative. I think like other parts of my life were kind of, you know, making me experience it not as negatively as other people were. Like it was very the intensity was good to me.
Yeah.
I liked that it was just a lot of energy. So I liked that.
I could see
But
that being like revelatory, like forcing you to do inner work or something.
yeah, I mean, you name it. It was just I had a funny enough. I was about to end up on was it? I think it's a Netflix show called Haunted.
For this house?
From this, yeah,
Okay.
I did a casting call with them, and I ended up at the last casting table. Uh, and they really wanted me to have still been haunted, even though I wasn't living. They were like, "Is the entity still
Yeah,
following
you
you?"
got a
And
hitchhiker
I was
on
like,
you.
"No, no, I don't live there anymore."
Yeah.
But so I didn't get it. I was like, I was trying. I really wanted the money. I really wanted the
You had
money
to
to
ham
go.
it up, dude.
I
Yeah.
know. I should have lied and
Yeah.
said it. I should have said it was still my life was awful,
It's
and
still blackening your heart.
yeah. If only they really knew. I should have told them all of it. But
So while we're there, what other kind of stuff did you see in this place?
yeah. So I mean, it was incessant sleep paralysis. Um, you know, I don't know what you'd call it. It wasn't really like it wasn't really like uh projecting, but it was, waking up, looking down at myself asleep, walking to a different part of the house, looking out the window, seeing everything structurally the same, but completely differently.
Mm.
And seeing entities walking on the sidewalks and everything. And I would just like be staring out the window, just like kind of in this like weird, kind of muted, silent world. Um, but yeah, you know, fogs. Like one time, I there was again, woke up in my bed, looked at myself asleep, looked at Ivana asleep, went over to the corner of my room because there was a girl humming at the wall. And I guess I like didn't have complete control over myself, but I started humming with her, like exactly the tune she was humming. And then a hand reached, I had long hair at the time. A hand reached through the door and pulled me by my hair up to the ceiling and then dropped me down the stairs. That and then
Come
I just
on.
woke up in
What?
bed. It was just like,
Oh, so it's
night
like, yeah, yeah, I got you. So that makes
every
sense.
night.
Yeah, it
There
sounds
was
outrageous, but I understand what you're saying. That a place just has this this force embedded in it that superimposes psychic states, and that it might not be like, well, that ghost is in the corner of the room. I can like walk over to it and take a picture of it, but there's more some sort of like psychic layering going on.
I'm the wrong person to ask about what anything means at all because I feel like I've had a very intensely spiritual life, um, and charged with all the things, but I'm consistently drowning in my rational mind so that there's never any kind of like true progress to that, I'm just consistently in this experiential mode.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. And we've talked a little bit about Franz Bardon or
Hmm.
Bardone,
Hmm.
and I was reading actually from one of his books yesterday, probably Initiation, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's crazy because he is so much the opposite of kind of what I've done in my life and the things
Hmm.
that me and Ben have messed with, like all of our
Hmm.
kind of experiments with I don't know, weird kind of divination, sort of chaos magic-y stuff. It's not structured at all, but Barden is somebody who will say that the magic circle like is so crucial to the like initiation because it represents like divinity, and when you're in the magic circle, you are the representation of like the divine human, and all of it has to be like this completely structured, rigorous thing.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. I always think about that, and like maybe if I'm doing it wrong by having this openness to like experiments, or if it's like a part of me wants to think about things as like, well, there doesn't really need to be that structure. Maybe a lot of that was kind of not important. But you ever
Well,
sort of consider that stuff because you've worked a little bit with some of Barden's
oh,
stuff, right?
well, before, yeah, before, like, I was like initiated into more of like a left hand zone, and uh, I that was my introduction actually into Barden, but the explanation given to me was ignore all of his moral stuff in the beginning.
Interesting.
Um,
Hmm.
this is a perfect system that's still publicly available. Like aside from like a few like flip-flops that you experience throughout the different editions of the books. Um, he was just like, yeah, this is like a complete perfect initiatory uh magic system, and without like going through an actual like order or something where none of it's like publicly available. But his whole thing was ignore any morality that he's saying, ignore the light, blah blah blah. You're allowed to do whatever you want,
Hmm.
But funny enough, ended up just being like this whole moment in my life that was making me understand my shadow and being like cultivating like a perfect self-awareness of like not perfect self-awareness but a very strong self-awareness of my flaws and beginning actual Hermetic work, which
Right.
is what was happening with Barden's books anyways. So, uh, there's no such thing as a coincidence. There's only the inevitable. So that's what ended up happening
Mm.
through this person who initiated me in a way that I was going in a direction that was unknown to me at the time,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's sort of how I think anyone would explain it throughout history anyways. But yeah, I think that like yeah, I feel that. I feel, and there's no real need for structure. And I think like probably like if you're looking to manifest change and your intention, uh like a chaos magic is probably the most powerful way to do it, but like I think you are inviting yourself to potential
Hmm.
uh injuries or traps
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
on a spiritual path. And like the structure, it's see that's to me like that is where I would tend to go because I'm like the most impatient person in the world. And like um it's difficult for me to put in real work. But
Yeah, I think the way that Barden puts it is that like the ritual, the
mhm,
structure, the tools, all of that stuff that you keep sacred and
mhm,
like focused and concentrated and meditated on, only like your tools that you're using for your ritualized environment are only taken out in that space, like only used for those purposes, is because like the whatever you want to call it, spirits, entities, or consciousness that you're communicating with, like recognizes the serious intentions of what you're doing. Whereas like if you don't have those like focused meditated intentions, then it kind of leaves you susceptible to what you're talking about, those kind of spiritual trapdoors and stuff.
yeah.
Which I won't say, me and Ben have definitely ran into a few in our own experiments and stuff, but for some reason,
Y-
keep
y-
going.
yeah, I mean, I think like even in sort of like a mundane way, I've read like other things of his, and who knows, take it with a grain of salt, like what's true and what's not. But like he, in some of the things I've read, like he talks about like needing to like protect himself from other people.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, he
uh,
was writing like as
from
a
psychic attacks, like and funny enough, like if you look at his history, it was uh taken
exactly
prisoner by the Nazis.
right.
They were trying to force him to do esoteric work for them. And then immediately after the war, taken prisoner by the
The
Russians.
Russians,
So
yeah,
like immediately, and so, yeah, I mean, and that's the truth. It's like throughout time, there's always been, structures of power have wanted powerful consciousness to be used for them. But, you know, uh, yeah, and then I think he died in a hospital.
yeah.
Like, I don't really know what this true story is, but,
It's like
yeah.
incredible to me that his books made it to the West, even like like that information slipped out.
Well, I think he might, I think he like, I don't know like all of his story. I know that he has there's a video out there somewhere of his son talking about making spagyrics with him, like harvesting plants during the certain alchemical like uh hours, and you know using astrology to make spagyric tinctures and
Mm.
medicine, and yeah, I don't know. So clearly it was like available, it was meant to be available. It wasn't ever like a secret thing, but yeah, they talk about like even just initiation into hermetics, like, takes like takes a lot of people, 10 years, their whole life, whatever,
Right, right.
it takes a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know.
Let me pick your brain on something. This maybe is
Sure.
a funny experiment. Is there anything in like, quote unquote magic or, paranormal investigation or all that stuff
Yeah.
that you would be like, no, there's no way I'm doing that. Apart from things that are like morally reprehensible, like a blood sacrifice or something, but like regular stuff like a Ouija board or the Goetia. Like, are there
Uh,
things where you would be, at one point in your life, like you would have been apprehensive of, or when you were active in this kind of stuff?
uh, Probably not.
Yeah, yeah,
Probably not.
yeah, yeah. I thought you would say that.
For better or for worse, like, honestly, and I, probably shouldn't say this on record, but at one point I would say the moral stuff even was taken out. So, um, yeah, like, and that was just like, again, I've now like condensed that into more of like a part of understanding myself completely so that I'm able to go forward with, uh, with more awareness, uh, of what my actual intentions and things are, because it's important to know, uh, the more, I guess, what some people would call darker things
True.
about yourself. Everyone's got it,
Right, right.
you know,
Integrating the
knowing,
shadow. Yeah.
yeah. So, but it's like, dude, like my whole thing is like, I'm, I just have always had like a strong foot in both worlds where I I will try to go into more of a existential philosophical mode about things and try to my rational mind tries to wrap around things it's not supposed to,
Hmm.
and then it's like a bucket of cold air dumped over my head. Like I don't I just I,
A bucket of cold air. I like that.
well, it doesn't. I You go so far and then you stop and you're like, oh, none of this is real.
Hmm.
None of this is real. What is real? Who like like I'm just an extension of one that everyone is a part of.
Yeah.
So what actually am I doing right now?
Uh huh.
And sometimes I just don't even, you just don't even want to like go to work.
So true. I do feel
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now it's
Like,
that's interesting because like all this exploration, all of this like deciphering does lead back to that notion that like that realization that we're all, a part of this whole. So what is there exactly to be so afraid of? Not going to say that I'm not. Like I get scared. I'd be scared to
yeah.
be in a haunted house. I probably would have packed my bags.
You know, I I like it. I think I like like I like being scared and I like scaring, you know? Uh and I like then showing somebody that it's not so scary.
Right. Right.
because what's the I don't know. Actually, there are some pretty awful things I can imagine happening. But yeah, I mean, haunted house. It's like my experience of that house at the very end was that it wasn't. I didn't think of it as like, oh, these are like ghosts or deceased people or even entities really. I like at the very end, I was like, this is the house. This is the house. It's not like a entity as like me. It's like the house is an entity.
Right. Right.
And that I felt like that was what was going on. Um and it didn't seem to want me to leave. Like that house didn't seem to want me to leave. And crazy thing is, like I did something as I was leaving. Like I was the last person leaving. I did something. I like threw something like underneath the house. And the next time that I went, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go just take a walk by, like for old time's sake. Like it was like 3 or 4 years later, just see what it's like. And I walked by, and it was being legit raided by cops. Like it had like 12 cops around it, and they had like broken in the door and everything.
Oh my
And I was
God.
like, what the? That's wild.
That is really
But
wild. I really like how you say that, though. I mean, you don't really hear that enough. That like a place has a spirit upon itself that isn't because of people. That's a whole thing in like philosophy now too, right? I forget the name of it, but it's like non-human centric philosophy.
yeah, yeah.
Which
Well,
is
it's like, there's been a lot of, you can kind of, just because something isn't organic doesn't mean that it's not psychically living, you know?
right, right.
Um, and so, yeah, it's like that it's with anything, like you have like a thought form and it grows into its own sentient self, like,
Mm.
and the same in a way like weed, and so that it can spread itself just like anything else, it's just spreading and
So let's talk about the God helmet. Let's switch gears.
What do you
Oh,
mean?
I'm sorry,
God?
not the God helmet. You had an experience with like the light, right? I'm forgetting the name of that technology.
Oh,
It's
what?
like
Oh, Are you talking about Pandora's Star?
yeah, right? Yeah,
The
yeah.
DMT light?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, so many directions. You also had a Marfa Lights thing that I would love to pick your brain
Marfa
about
lights, dude, Marfa
because
lights.
that
It's
place seems incredible.
the coolest. Okay, so yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, going out there was cool because Yvonne and I have been out there a few times now, and
Your psychic wife, who we haven't mentioned, but you're married to
yeah,
Ivana Roman, who's been on the show twice as well.
yeah,
It's just a whole nother
yeah.
layer to this story. It's pretty funny.
She or it was there's like a couple camping next to us, like at the place we were at. And they were like, "Oh, are you coming to the star party tonight?" We're like, "What's that?"
This is at Marfa.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
this dude on the DL like runs the some observatory that's out there, and they throw star parties where everyone drops acid and like at the observatory."
Okay. I
But
don't remember this part of the story, but hell yeah.
well, that was just I was just talking to people, and we were like, no, we're gonna go see if we can see the Marfa lights instead. And
Okay.
like,
Okay.
okay, go to such and such place,
Marfa
and
sounds lit.
it kind of I really love it.
Yeah.
I really love it, and I a lot of people you know kind of like to hate on it because it's just like Austin and LA folks that come through, and
True.
you get like I at some point in your life you kind of just have to let go of like all of that judgment and
Fear of
decide you like
hipsterdom. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's fuck it, I think it's a cool place, but
There's a
um
there's a Richard.
as long
Here's
as you're responsible to the people who live there, and you're not fucking things up for them. But
right, right. There's
um
like a big Richard Serra installation out there too, right?
that and there's the fucking Prada thing, the Prada store that's in the
Okay.
middle of the desert. Um,
Sounds cool.
yeah, but so we go out to the spot on the highway, and it's kind of like established there. It's like a spot where you can see them, and
What are they?
sure, we see them right away.
Like, tell me
Like
what the short history of the Marfa Lights is.
I there I don't think there is a short history. Like I brought it up at the bar. Like I was having a beer and I brought it up to the bartender. I was like, "Yo, what's your experience with the Marfa lights or whatever?" And she shut me down. And she was like, "Just so you know, that's not something that it's a personal experience and you don't really talk about it the way you are,
Holy
and
shit!
they don't just happen where you saw them, just so you know." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's cool."
Whoa, damn, that's
But
crazy.
she shut me down. And but they are these like orbs that appear in the sky, and if you go on the internet and try to like research it, people disprove it as atmospheric gases reflecting headlights from the highway.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I find that very, very difficult to believe because of the way they behave. It just looked personified. I don't know how else to say it. Like, would go into a shape and then go into a straight line, and then two or three of them would dart off to the hills. It wasn't like just a flash, or they weren't just like hovering there.
Yeah.
They would be stationary. They would go into like a formation. A couple of them would dart off. Like you'd see them dart off. Some of them would blink away. Um, anyways, we were like mesmerized by it. It was really cool. no matter what it was really cool. I talked to a high school couple there. I was like, these people are local. Then, I like go up to them. They were like having like their little date night or something. I was like, hey, so what do you think these are? You know, y'all are from around here, right? And he's like, I don't know, man, but they're cool to look at. And he's like, my grandma talks about them because his grandma was from there too.
Okay.
And he said she would sit, and if she sat quietly enough, they would come up to her and be the size of a basketball, a translucent light orb. He said she said this to them. Uh, they would circle around her and then dart back off into the hills. And so while I was there, I bought a book on the Marfa Lights by this retired Air Force pilot who would fly B-52s because there was a test field out there. Every It was investigated by the Air Force. This phenomenon was investigated by the Air Force, and they just concluded that they couldn't figure out what it was, but that it was a non-threat. That was their conclusion.
So that was
And
like
then
Blue Book, maybe, or
I don't know,
yeah,
but
I'll check that out. Yeah.
so the pilots, what would happen is specifically B-52s. There was, you know, all of these, I think like hundreds of instances of taking off. They'd watch an orb come out of the ground. It would stay along the wing the entire flight. And then as soon as they landed, it would go back down into the ground. And that's what everyone described. And it sounds really similar to like during World War II,
Foo
like
Fighters.
the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it sounds a lot like that. But yeah, and I haven't dug any deeper really, but people out there were telling me that I think it would be Apache, like the tribe would have been Apache, but the native people had talked about them too. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's before cars,
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that explanation seems, like swamp gassy, whatever. Same.
Yeah, I was like, in my head, I was like, well, who's to say it's not just like some sort of thing that we don't know about, like a light ball that lives in the ground
Yeah.
and comes out sometimes.
Did you like feel anything from it, or how close would you say they got to?
Oh, and they were. It was out off in the distance, like in the hills.
Okay.
So but I mean, just curiosity and excitement.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just fun. I didn't really feel any kind of like they looked. I did like it's like I said. It looked like they were kind of like personified and playful. I don't really know, but yeah. Pretty cool. There were a lot of people that sit out there taking photos. Like they have like their tripods and stuff set up.
Interesting. I wonder if there's a lot of good
I'm sure
photography
there
there.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was really, really neat to experience. Taking road trips is like, it's like the greatest,
It's
like
the soul of America.
luxury in my eyes. Like if I was, had the means to just be free,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do is just like consistently travel, even just in the US. Like there's
Absolutely. Yeah.
so much to do in the US. But yeah.
It's my favorite way of travel for sure. I mean, I love the roadside stuff, what you're talking about, and to be able to like go in, these forgotten little museums and small towns and talk to people and stuff is super nice. The car kind of gives you the freedom to explore a lot of nooks and crannies that, you would only be able to do if you were in like one city otherwise.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, I mean, I can't even remember what it was called. Fuck. we ended up at some either state or national park that was like a giant rock amphitheater, like huge, huge. And we got there at night and you couldn't see it, but I felt like in serious eeriness there. And I fucked up because we were gonna sleep in the tent and I really needed like to stretch out and sleep, but I like kind of just mumbled as we were pulling in, like, damn, this is like some Zodiac killer shit here. And like Yvonne was like, we're sleeping in the car. And I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So we slept in the car because there was like one it was pretty scary, but yeah, that spot was awesome though.
I've
Like
definitely,
when
yeah.
we woke up and saw it, we were like, holy shit, this is insane.
When you roll into those like Bureau of Land Management sites out west and stuff, and you're usually driving in on a dirt road for like an hour and it's, pitch dark and you're looking for that one other RV to know where the hell you're even at. It's so funny.
You never know.
Yeah, it's a
Never
little
know,
spooky
man.
for sure.
Yeah.
So what was that light that you were telling me about? That was like kind of simulating.
The Pandora story.
Yeah, that's like simulating or inducing like a revelatory experience.
Yeah, so I worked at like a float spot, sensory deprivation tank spot, and my coworker had bought one and let me try it. And the first time I did it, it was like amazing, like, wow, this is, you keep your eyes closed and it flashes over your face. And I was like, really intense closed eye visuals, like swirling mandala and beginning of like symbols coming out, and really, really, really cool. But it ended, and I said to him, I was like, huh, it was cool. And I was like, what'd you have me on? And he was like, oh, 6. And I was like, crank it, dude. And Ivana did it with me. And like, um, then I did it, and it was the same thing, but like, it just got in like a swirl of symbols, like, and eventually, yeah, just like felt like I was rocketed forward and then into like a white, just pure white space. And then I like saw 3 kind of like hooded, seriously, like gray-esque alien types like hovering over me and like kind of looking at each other and like thinking about stuff and then like silently talking to each other, and then rocketed forward again, and then ended up in a memory of mine, but I was like living it.
Whoa.
I was in the memory 100%. And the same thing happened to Ivana. She was like, yeah, I was a little girl, and it was the first time I had cut my finger, and I was staring at my cut in the sink, like, dripping blood or whatever. But she was like, I was the little girl. Yeah, and that's how it was. Like, it's just, and it came out, and I was like, that really was very DMT-esque. And so the claim is that this light, triggers your brain to like squirt out a little DMT, I guess, and have a little bit of an astral experience.
Whoa.
But yeah, I want to say what's his name? Terrence McKenna's brother.
Yeah.
Is it Randall McKenna or something? I can't remember.
Dennis McKenna. I
Dennis,
think.
you're right, Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis McKenna. He talks about it, and he's like,
Yes.
it certainly is like DMT, like, or whatever.
So did
But
they like produce this or?
yeah, there's a couple companies, like there's another one. So this one's Pandora Star, and I think it's like the cheap version. There's another one, and it's more like I think it's like 10 grand, and it's like, but you have to like do our class. and it's, they're kind of like setting it up so you have to, like a money grab. So
Subscription based
yeah, Patreon.
revelation.
Yeah, just subscribe to our podcast.
Yeah, consensus on
No,
reality.
I'm just kidding. No, but I
We're giving
I
out
mean it's
lights.
huh?
We're gonna have the light membership.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah, you got
flashlight with some tape over it.
there. It's crazy. Yeah, my friend Citron got one, and I told him, I was like, don't do it too much, man. Might
True.
Could imagine just like having one like in your living room, and you're just like, you get home and you're like, might as well.
Yeah.
And you could get, who knows? Who knows if you can do that too much?
Yeah, yeah. As the famous line says, you got to hang up the phone, right? Yeah. Once you get
He
the
is
the
he is
answer.
someone he is someone you most certainly should have on, I feel like.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, he's definitely, yeah. Actually, funny enough, that's like when I very first met him. That was like the first thing we had like started talking about was Barden.
Oh,
'Cause-
crazy.
yeah, and yeah, right away I was like, oh yeah. Forget what prompted it, but I was like, yeah, initiation into hermetics, and he was like, oh yeah,
Franz
that's
Barton.
that's the book.
That's pretty sick. So let's talk about your music project a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Close it out there. But has this stuff has obviously crossed over a lot into your sound works, right?
yeah. Um, you know, it's I don't really I'm not really sure what it was all about. Um, Coteries is definitely done. Um, I, I don't know. It was sort of like, again, like an exploration um into certain parts of my psyche, and um you know I think it was kind of a therapeutic process. I know that doesn't sound very interesting, but to process particular difficult events that I've experienced.
Oh, it makes a lot of
Um,
sense. I mean,
yeah,
like catharsis through art, right?
to-
Yeah.
totally was that. And um, it's like you talked about like fear, and it's like the fear reaction. I feel like the peak fear reactions had already happened when I was like a kid. So it was like experiencing all the different facets of that. The re-experiencing the fear, re-experiencing or experiencing it as somebody who isn't afraid at all, experiencing it as the cause of the fear. Like all of these parts of it, and bringing them back into myself, and it kind of like completes that process. It's like, uh yeah, you know well, what do you say, like what can you really say? It's like the qualities you hate in others are the qualities you hate in yourself.
Hmm.
It's one of those things. It's like it's all just like a reflection of your psyche, like outside of you, and um reintegrating it and trying to uh push it through like a particular process of uh transmutation, um, and then multiplication.
Yeah.
So it's
It
So
makes
it's
sense
good.
to me, man. I mean, it's kind of like a self work alchemy through an artistic
Yeah,
practice. I know that
definitely.
if I tagged that off as like a word salad, it probably sounds
Yeah.
pitiful, but the reality of it is kind of like, you know, the ability to work through yourself through an artistic practice is a tale as old as time, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and then yeah, performance art, it's like pure performance art is just like Ivana said just last night or the night before. She was like, "Oh, pure performance art is just doing exactly what you want to do." So so it's like, yeah, it's uh some of the things I did, it was just because I wanted to, and it's like you create this art to give yourself permission.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, and I mean it's incredible too because you're such a prolific artist and the variance in stuff that you've done. If I can think of some of your performances that I've seen, has almost reminded me of like old seance stuff where like the garment style like ectoplasm is like coming out of their mouth, and like
oh
forming these
yeah,
like spiritual
huh.
shapes. It's
Yeah, I
almost that
never.
like your performances were reminding me of like putting the spirit into yourself or something.
Wow, I never even thought about that. That I know exactly what you're talking about. Those old photographs
I
with the
saw you do it live, I believe, too. Or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, I always just put funny
Oh,
enough,
you're
like
talking
I
the
just
spiritualist photos. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the old spiritualist photo. Yeah, funny enough, the reason I would do that was just because I liked the way it made my voice sound.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like in like the extra, like you're kind of like suffocating and you having to push extra hard through like this wet cloth that's like shoved in your mouth. And um yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's then I wore the shirt, it was all kind of like a gimmick, right? I like sound. I do
Yeah.
like sound. And
Right.
I got caught in that project, like this kind of gimmick. And, everyone's expecting sort of like the similar thing out of it. And that, yeah, it was a trap,
Mm.
and, uh, but there were a lot of different things. Like, when you say seance, yeah, there was like a lot of like ritualistic aspects to it, and I was I did find this way to sort of like you control the energy of the room by just like at a certain point I've found, and if somebody is not interested, then I could kind of I feel like I could kind of dismiss them out of the room. But like you can kind of uh if you just stop for a moment and you don't speed through something, and you just stop and you look at everyone and you feel that attention that's on you. You're conducting just like literal attention, and you can really like gather that energy and use it. Just it's going like you have feedback loop. Just the energy is a feedback loop, like going between the audience and you, and then they're feeling their own collective energy being reflected back at them and becoming more and more intense. And uh yeah, it's like as I was doing that, I was like, I shouldn't even say on this podcast, but like you can kind of understand in that process that like if you were to look at one of my performances, you can start to understand how maybe somebody who is in front of a crowd politically
Mm-hmm.
can garner that power
Mm-hmm.
and really, really like, incite a crowd.
Right.
Uh,
No, that's
but
magic. It's funny you
yeah,
say that.
yeah,
I mean, like noise music too could have the complete opposite effect where if you're like a room full of people is watching somebody bomb so badly that it almost like opens a vortex in the room. You know what I'm saying? Like if you see a set where somebody like isn't harnessing it in some sort of way, but it's just like the negative focused escalates into this like psychic rip in time.
I've seen amazing versions of that.
Yeah.
I've
Me
seen
too.
amazing versions of that where it's so incredibly what you're describing that you wonder if it's intentional.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like I've literally talked about that. Like that was where I've said that was either the worst thing I've ever seen or the best thing I've ever seen. And
Right, right. It's on the
it's not
meridian.
yeah. I won't say any names, but
That's hilarious. Yeah. Cool, man. I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. You got any crazy float tank stories?
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's definitely something that people should do. Yeah, the first thing that came to mind is like a time I had to clean one. That was kind of
Okay.
you say crazy float tank stories because I like worked at a place. I mean, yeah, but yeah, like a horrendous cleaning.
True.
But yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's something that people should try out, and it's a very therapeutic experience. It's good for you physically. A lot of
Sure.
magnesium.
Yeah, yeah. Probably loosen up in there too. Maybe a little too much. I don't know.
Yeah, you should go do it. Go float, man.
Yeah, I gotta do so much more stuff like this. Anyway, all right. Thanks for
Yeah.
listening to another edition of Consensus Unreality. We'll be back next week. Me and Ben are going to be talking about a massive investigation into the afterlife. Check that out on patreon.com/consensusunreality, as well as our full episode archive, 5 years worth, exclusive written content, printed journals, all that and more. Catch you next time.
Thank you.